Welcome to Illuminating Catholics, podcast of the Diocese of Sioux City. I'm Dawn Prosser, Director of Communications for the Diocese. Together with Carmen Bauer of the Faith Formation Office, we will shed light upon topics of faith in the modern church. Our guests include Catholic clergy, religious sisters, and other experts in their fields to help us understand what's happening in the church today. We will explore issues, even the tough ones, and to find answers to common questions about Catholicism. Thank you for joining us for today's Illuminating Catholics, shedding light to understand the modern church.
Welcome back to the Illuminating Catholics podcast. I'm Carmen Bauer, Director of Faith Formation for the Diocese of Sioux City.
And I'm Dawn Prosser, Director of Communications for the Diocese.
Thank you for joining us for another episode and learning about another aspect of the faith. Another returning guest today is Dr. Ryan Allen, President of the Fire Foundation of Northwest Iowa, a relatively new organization that is making a huge impact upon our Catholic schools and families. The mission of the Foundation for Inclusive Religious Education, or FIRE as the acronym, is to champion the inclusion of students with disabilities in Catholic schools by providing educational resources, fundraising, and promoting a culture of belonging. We can't wait to hear about what impacts FIRE has made just in the last year. Welcome, Dr. Allen.
Thank you all so much.
Welcome back. So as Carmen references, it was just shy of a year ago when you first came on our podcast to share more about the basics of the FIRE Foundation, and you have done a lot since then. It's actually kind of amazing what you've done since you started, but just in the last year. But for those who aren't familiar, do you want to give us just kind of like your elevator speech of how the foundation began and how long it's been in place?
Yeah, so we started getting together as a group of just families, individuals who had children with disabilities, who had other children who were in our Catholic school system here in the diocese. And that process happened for about 2.5 years. We were meeting informally and just connecting with one another, sharing stories. And then in 2020, we formally became the FIRE Foundation, started doing business in early 2021. And like you mentioned, since then, we've done a lot of work here with Bishop Heelan here in Sioux City, but also expanding out throughout the diocese. But at the heart of it, we're just a group of parents who want to see our kids go to Catholic schools. And that's at the heart of it all.
And we're so grateful and all you volunteers putting this together, because they do a lot. So again, why is it important for our Catholic schools to have, and our families to have this inclusion?
Everybody belongs. I think that's if not in our Catholic schools, then where? Where can we experience the full inclusion of our children in their faith, and which our Catholic schools are a huge part of that. That's a huge part of their development. So it's really the ground level outside of our families and the time that we spend there, that our time that our kids spend in schools is the most formative time of their young lives. And so we want our time with our kids to be in the same places that everybody else does, having those extra layers of support that our public school counterparts just can't provide. We talk a lot about, in special education, about MTSS and the tiers of support, and that's important. We embrace that, from serving everybody to small groups to all the way to the individuals who have the highest needs. But our Catholic schools offer a layer of support that others can't provide, and that's the relationship of God in the classroom and in the community, and what it means to connect not just in school, but also the larger parish community, and how, like the circle that's built around our kids. And we just want to experience that, like I said before, just as everybody else.
Thank you.
Well, and I think the value of the students with disabilities, what they provide in the communities of our Catholic schools too, is also very important to highlight and their witness.
Absolutely. I think that, if we were to think at the heart of what we're doing, yes, we want to get our kids with disabilities into our Catholic schools for them. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. But to your point, it's as much for the rest of us as anyone else. The benefits of inclusion are not just about our Catholic consciousness, but it's academic performance as well. Schools that are more inclusive perform at a higher rate, and kids who have that exposure to these individuals are going to be so much more well prepared for the real world. And because our disability community is not going anywhere. They've always been here, and we want full inclusion, not just in our school life, but in their whole lives. And this is a huge part of it.
Absolutely. So when you first started, there were several years of preparation and everything. So how exciting was it for you when you were first able to provide a grant to a Catholic school?
It was amazing. Like, it's no one ever sees the work that is done, before you get to the starting line. But there was so much that was done before we ever got to the starting line, and so many conversations that, again, really just began with concerned parents getting together and talking. We had no conception in the beginning that this is where this was going. I had no idea. It actually took like a long time for us to come to that realization. And it was like we just kept looking around and identifying all the different places where was going to intersect with all of our lives. And like, if it wasn't, I don't know what I'm trying to say here is, but like, we were the heroes that we were waiting for. Like, there was nobody else. Like, if somebody was going to do this, it had to be us. And so, to the question of like, how excited were we? It was amazing. And now to see that it's, what we knew right away was we did this for our kids. But right away, like, we were trying to build something that was going to far outlast what our kids were going to experience. And definitely impact so many others. And that's definitely what we've seen. I mean, what began as just this work, and for a few of us here in Sioux City, has expanded out all across the diocese. And we're giving to all of our schools in some way, shape, or form.
That's incredible, and praise God. So last spring, for those who are keeping up with the Lumen, there was an article about the $80,000 in grants provided through the Fire Foundation. I'm sure we can link that article in the show notes. But can you share a little bit about those grants?
Yeah, so once a year we give out major grants to the schools who apply. All throughout the year we do smaller micro grants that schools are open to apply to. But for those major grants, they're primarily funding a couple things. One is personnel. What we know is that at the moment we don't have the infrastructure in place in our diocese or in really any of our schools to replicate what we need in terms of personnel, in terms of special educators, Strat 1s, Strat 2s, paraprofessional support, resource teachers, the whole gamut. And so a lot of what we're trying to do to help build this throughout the diocese is to help schools get that personnel. And so that's a huge piece of it. And then the other piece is really about professional development for teachers. And that's that's probably where the next biggest amount of funds go to. And that's supporting teachers to learn inclusive practices, to dive into that tiered, structured system of support, and to attend conferences and workshops and retreats, and to gather together in professional learning communities to share resources and best practices. And then a third thing, I guess, that we fund as well, and we're in some of those grants too, is curriculum to make learning more accessible, adaptive technology. So those are most of the awards kind of fall into one of those three categories.
Fantastic. And are you able to provide us with some examples of the schools that received those grants?
Yeah, absolutely. So we mentioned our support for Bishop Hill, and that's been there from the very beginning. So that funds for them directly supported an additional student support, director of student support services. We paraprofessional salary resources to St. Mary's and Storm Lake, support for an interventionist at Emmitsburg. I mentioned the curriculum. There was a math curriculum to St. Rose and Denison, and St. Edmunds had a salary support for an inclusive education program coordinator. I'm probably leaving out some, but those are some of the big ones. So a lot for salaries. I think that's what we see in this in the major grants, and I think that's going to continue until we have those supports in place. And the beautiful thing, Fire is here to fill in a gap. We don't have $80,000. This is a lot of money, but we got over $200,000 in requests, and so we're trying to help fill a gap, and we can only fill so much of that gap. And so what's beautiful about the leadership of the diocese and in our Catholic schools at the principal level is they get it. They see that this is something that we need to support. And so as we give dollars to help kickstart these positions or to help sustain them, there's also an awareness we're not fully funding positions, and they're putting some skin in the game and continuing that support so that it can sustain beyond when our grant dollars are going to be there.
Definitely. And as you're reaching the communities all across the diocese, are you able to visit the folks who live there and tell them a little bit about the Fire Foundation?
I think that's one of the the great things that's happened in this last about year and a half is a real concerted effort to get out across the diocese and meet different school communities, and so we've done that at several. And that's translated even to, we had an event up in Storm Lake a few months ago, and that was great to bring people together, and we're looking to do that in other places. What we know is that this really begins like it began for us, with a family or two or three that are experiencing the same kind of things we did in our own lives and our own personal experience. And so we're just looking to connect with those in each of these school communities and maybe building out from there, just having, coffee or lunch or a dinner party or something like that with just a handful of people who really get it and are experiencing it and want to see their kids go to Catholic schools alongside their siblings and friends.
And I've seen that over the years, and I just can't imagine for those families how great it is to have the kids together in the same place and for those kids. So as we just mentioned, you've given out huge sums of money, dollars for grants to the schools. So obviously that doesn't just come out of thin air. So how are you funding your mission?
All through donor support. It's amazing. So we put out the call and people answer. And so 100% of the funds that we raise go right back into our schools. We're all volunteers. And so I think folks recognize that. And so we're seeing huge personal support from different families in our diocesan community, but even growing here in the last year or so. And I think this is a great development and it'll help us expand our mission, is to get more corporate sponsorships and businesses recognizing our organization and what we're doing for the community.
Great. So you've got an event coming up, 6th annual Ignite the Fire event, September 16th. So can you tell us a little bit about that and what's new?
Yeah, the biggest new thing is we're at a new location. So we're moving from Mardo's Brewing Company, which has been awesome. We love Mardo's and want to continue to support them, and everybody should. But our events, thankfully, just gotten too big. And so now
it's a great
problem. So we're moving into a bigger space this year. We'll be at the new Sioux City Distillery. It'll be, again, bigger and better, and we're really excited about it.
And we're looking forward to that. So how can people purchase tickets for this event? When are they going to go on sale? And how can we purchase them and support your cause?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's live right now. You can go online to our website. That's the easiest way. You can. There's a QR code there. There's a link to Donor Box to go that way. All our contact information is there as well. So if there's any issues or struggles, or you want to just reach out and talk to a human person, we can do it that way as well. And that'll come right to me.
All right. We'll go in the show notes so you can click and figure out how to get your own tickets, and if you're able to go, that'd be great. So let's say someone's listening over in Fort Dodge or Carroll, places that you've supported, and they want to support you, but maybe they can't come over to Sioux City for that night. How can they help you?
Again, reaching out through the website is probably the easiest way, but even just an email, we need time, talent, treasure, the whole gamut. Like I mentioned, we're all volunteers, so if anybody has any passion for this purpose, then we want to hear from you. And so that can be just working on a particular project that a person is passionate about. If they want to see that happen in their school community, we want to help support that. If it's just connecting with family members, we want to connect with that. If it's supporting people in an IEP or 504 process, we want to help with that. So those are like low-hanging fruits where our people are in terms of family support services and supporting teachers and the work they're doing. But certainly we have committees on our board, and we have a board, and we are always looking for folks to join that. And so anybody who's out there who has a passion for this, then we want to hear from you.
Yes, there's your invitation.
So we've talked in a general sense about the number of schools that are able to enhance their inclusion efforts through the dollars raised with the Fire Foundation. Are you able to share with us any insights into the deep impact on families that these efforts are making? Any stories that you can share?
Sure. I think that, as I mentioned before, everything we do began because there was a family who wanted to see their child be supported. And so that is at the heart of what we do. Even though our dollars are directed into schools, supporting families is really where it's at, because that's where this all really begins. I think for us, it was just understanding right away that we weren't alone. And I think that's like the biggest impact that's universal, is like this. There is such a feeling when you have a child with a disability and you're trying to navigate this system that there is nobody else, because probably in most of these communities there is only a handful or less of people who have been in this situation that they might have some contact with. So just all of a sudden talking to someone like me or another one of our board members who's a parent and experiencing this too, it's like, I think very uplifting to know that there is a community out here of our people, and so that's a huge thing, and we've experienced that now well beyond just in Sioux City. Like now we have a board member in Remsen, for example. We have board members in Lamar's. We have connections. We've done events in Storm Lake. We have these connections all over the place, and it's all the same. It's parents who just want to have this experience for their kids. At a deeper level, I think that now we see, when my daughter we began this journey, it was before she was even in school. That's what I was like in the beginning. We knew this was all coming. So as she was before even entering into the school system, these were conversations we were having. So it's a process and it takes time. And we're still this morning, I'm sending a message to my IEP team, or her IEP team to what's going on, folks? There's always issues. There's always something. And that's to be expected because our kids aren't static. They evolve. Their needs change. And so that's the biggest thing I think that we are seeing now is, my daughter is going into 6th grade. And so wow. That's amazing. But there's still 7th and 8th in high school to navigate. And that's what we're seeing is what began with this journey for many of us, or for a lot of us when our kids were really little, is to think, so we were working so much to just get to the starting line and just to get going and all the things that had to be done just to get to step 1. And now there's 1,000 steps. And so we have to build that bridge as we cross it, as all volunteers, as relying on donor dollars. There's only so much we can do so quickly, but the need is profound. We went from, like I said, we gave out $80,000, but we got over $200,000 in requests, and that's over double what we got last year in requests. So wow. That part of that is, it's great. There's more recognition that there's support out there. That's us. That's our mission. But my goodness, there's a lot of need, and we could only fill so much of it. Mm-hmm. And so I think we have to navigate that, and that's our work ahead, is to figure out how do we build our runways in school to get us from elementary to middle to high school and then beyond, when our dollars aren't going to necessarily be there because they're going to be in those K-12 spaces. What can we do to prepare for the next phase of these folks' lives?
Wonderful, and what an invitation for all of us to consider how we can be a part of that as well.
Absolutely.
Do you have any final comments? Anything else you'd like to share before we sign off here?
Just deep gratitude to everybody. I think that we were just, as I've iterated many times here, just a group of parents. I'm an English major. We're not, this is never what we intended for our lives and expected to not just start a nonprofit, but to run a business and to have all the moving parts that are a part of it. So I want to give a huge shout out of thanks to our board of directors, who again are all volunteers, experts in all their own areas, who take a lot of time to make all this possible. And many of these folks don't have children with disabilities. It makes sense why people like me want to see this happen, and that we'll do anything for our kids, but that there's people out there who don't have that direct one-to-one connection, maybe familially, but it's a recognition that what we see so much is, and we see this at our events, when folks come and talk to us, they pull us aside at Mass, and they tell us about a story from 30 years ago or 40 years ago about their sibling or their uncle or their aunt, and about what wasn't possible then and what is possible now. It's amazing. It's so amazing. So I'm just so grateful.
Well, and we are also most grateful to you for joining us today, but also for all of your work and just the inspiration that you are. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Allen, President of the Fire Foundation of Northwest Iowa. Thank you for being here just to update us on the impact of the organization throughout all of our Catholic schools in the diocese and for all the families that they serve. Mark your calendars for September 16th, Ignite the Fire, the event at the Sioux City Distilling Company. Remember, it is a new location this year, and so we hope to see lots of supporters there. And thank you all for listening to today's Illuminating Catholics as we shine a light on inclusion in our Catholic schools, thanks to the efforts of the Fire Foundation of Northwest Iowa. New episodes drop each Tuesday wherever you get your podcasts, the Diocese of Sioux City YouTube channel, or at lumenmedia.org.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Illuminating Catholics, shedding light to understand the modern church. Follow us for more episodes on topics of the Catholic faith. For more diocesan news, visit lumenmedia.org.